Hello, and welcome to this week's What Were They Thinking? The first item this week regards the ability to train an AI, or at least a decision-making system, to diagnose breast cancer. Experts claim that it is significantly better than the work of radiologists. Breast cancer is among the most prevalent forms of cancer. The probability of cancer increases with age and is why most countries have a policy that advises women over 50 have mammograms every 2 to 5 years. This normally involves at least 2 doctors examining the radiology reports and images. This then produces a generally positive trend between correct diagnoses and the opinion of the doctors. There is, however, a small incidence of false positives and false negatives, those being images that show otherwise benign masses or do not identify the cancerous mass at all. That is where this new development from Google Health comes in. They describe it as an artificial intelligence model. The reality is it has no capacity to think beyond its code, which more appropriately makes it a program. In some cases, you might argue it's more a decision-making tool. Regardless of how you wish to define it, they fundamentally trained this device using a large body of known positive images. They then tested this on a catalog of images that the machine did not know if it was positive or negative. This decision-making system reduced the incidence of false positives by 5.7% in the US and 1.2% in the British cohorts. It also decreased the misdiagnoses by 9.4% amongst the US and 2.7% in the British cohorts. These are not insignificant numbers when you consider the prevalence of breast cancer. In other health and political news, China has confirmed that a third child was born from Dr. He's CRISPR baby experiments. For those who are unaware, Dr. He was a Chinese researcher who genetically modified a number of embryos, that these were then meant to be resistant to HIV. Within China and around the world, this is generally considered an illegal practice for a variety of ethical and practical reasons. We have not heard much from Dr. He, if anything at all, for over a year now. Recent news made everyone aware that he was being charged with a variety of crimes. What we were not aware of until these reports came out was the extent of what he had done. All we were familiar with was that he had been put under house arrest, and that the children we knew of before now were at least healthy at present. However, they were unlikely to ever be resistant to HIV based on the work he had done. The charges, as we now know, include a third edited child carried to term, and quite a few more that did not carry through. This is even more controversial than it was previously. We have yet to gain enough information to know anything more about the child, its sex, whether or not it's healthy, whether or not genetic testing has shown that the experiment was successful, and more. There is so little known about this, and it's unlikely that we will ever discover more information. The sentencing itself is interesting for a variety of reasons. Nobody should be surprised to find that he was found guilty, as China has a 99% conviction rate, verging on 100%. The sentencing as such involved not only a $430,000 fine issued against Dr. He himself, but also led to 3 years in jail. He was not the only person who was convicted by these courts in relation to the CRISPR baby experiments. There were 2 other researchers from China who were also punished. One, named Zhang Renli, He was given a 2-year jail term and fined roughly $150,000. Then there was Kim Jin-zo, who was given an 18-month suspended sentence. They were also fined roughly $75,000. The really bizarre thing about this is that the 3 who have been punished at present, out of possibly 12 researchers, none of them were qualified to do what they did ultimately. It's not yet known whether or not any of the other researchers from China or possibly abroad who were tied into this scandal might yet face repercussions. Next is a little bit of environmental and ecology news that's kind of bizarre. Australia is experiencing an extreme bushfire season, so much so that it's currently destroying an area of the country greater than that of other bushfires in other countries across the world. This is having an effect on the environment to no one's surprise. What may surprise you is that the phenomena is so extreme that it's actually creating its own weather patterns. In a slight act of irony, the fires are producing enough smoke that they are then developing their own clouds, which in turn can produce storms leading to even more fires further afield. The same heat column that is pushing clouds up can also move embers and char up into the sky and carry it further afield. This can also lead to yet more fires. That's already terrifying in context, but the same phenomena can also generate fire tornadoes. The very thin and very tenuous silver lining to all of this is that the same phenomena leading to all of these fires, or possible causes of fire, can also create short-lived downbursts. These are very short-lived periods of rain just on the leading edge of the fire, just outside where it could be of use or helpful immediately, but possibly delay the fire just slightly before the heat drives that water off yet again. Finally, we have some more pleasant and enjoyable animal-related news to make you feel more upbeat. There's a small island in Wales in which researchers have been observing the puffin population. This is nothing particularly unique in and of itself. It is the behavior of one puffin that is interesting. It began using a tool, its own back scratcher. It was simply shrugged off as an anomaly, but the same researcher observed it occurring again several years later, thousands of kilometers away, in Iceland. Tool use is not uncommon in birds. Crows are particularly well known for doing so, but other species have used it. Eagles will carry away turtles and drop them from a height to be able to access their delicious innards. The puffin is distinct in that it is a seabird, and this sort of behavior has not been observed with them before. That is what makes the puffin's use of a tool so interesting. The act did raise more questions than it answered initially, as the area the bird scratched was not inaccessible. It could have just as easily used its beak to preen itself. Why then was it using a stick? And, more importantly, is it a continuing behavior, or just a one-off anomaly? Thank you for watching this video. If you have found it interesting, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please post any comments, questions, or suggestions below.